The open road is calling, it's got stories to tell. I've got a few of my own flowing from a deeper well. The cherry blossoms blooming, shimmering clouds, pink and white, and I'm leaving the old things behind.
Welcome to the Midlife Capers Podcast. I'm your host, Kara Highsmith. In each episode, we will hear from people, everyday friends and neighbors kinds of people, who have taken on some sort of adventure in midlife. Maybe it's a creative project where they explore a previously hidden talent. It might be pulling up stakes and moving to a new, unexpected location just because. It could be changing the way they show up in the world. The point is, they are doing something that pushes them outside their comfort zones, responding to those internal nudges, allowing themselves and their lives to take a different shape than they imagined. I hope you will find their stories inspiring, perhaps motivating, and keep coming back as we have new conversations. Welcome back to the Midlife Capers Podcast. My guest today is Beth Hubner, and I have not spent a whole lot of time with her over the years, but we have had so many friends in common. We've hung out a few times, but I've learned a lot about some really exciting things she's doing by staying in touch on social media. And so I wanted to have her on today to discuss this new adventure she's taking on in midlife. Um, I'm jealous because it's something that I have actually fantasized about for a very long time. And I mean, like, down to so many little details. It's just never something I've executed, or I don't know, maybe I just figure that I'm not there yet. But
We're
anyway,
not there either.
So Beth, the first thing I want to do is kind of start off with the question I ask everyone, which is, what did life look like for you before 50? Laying the groundwork so that we know like what this new thing is doing for your life.
Before 50, I was a little bit of a train wreck. So I'm 53 now. I met my husband when I was 49, 49. Yeah. So, my 40s were a lot of growth, a lot of change, I think it was for a lot of people that, especially
Mhm.
with the pandemic, there was a lot of finding out kind of what I wanted out of life and who I wanted to be and how to show up authentically. I had gotten laid off from my job. Um, I had dealt with a bunch of personal blows and really started to kind of revisit the person that I was presenting to the world and then the person that I actually was and who I kind of wanted to present to the world, and kind of peeling off the layers and taking the mask off.
Yeah.
And so before 50 was a lot of growth. It was a lot of figuring out kind of who I wanted to be and who I wanted to attract into my life, and how I wanted to live out the second half, because the first half was a lot of trying to figure it out not authentically, I guess is the best way to put it. Like,
Yeah.
I did a
Uh-huh.
lot of stumbling around trying to be a version of myself that I thought everybody else wanted and not necessarily who I wanted to be. And so prior to 50, it was kind of like a lot of lessons and not as many blessings. And then once I
Yeah.
kind of shifted my approach to visualizing who I was and what I wanted, and how I wanted my life to be, when 50 hit, everything shifted. And
Yeah.
it was pretty magical how it all kind of aligned. I met the love of my life and my husband, who is now my husband, and
Mhm.
he got to celebrate my 50th with me, and it was great. We went roller skating, and he held my hand around the roller skating rink, and he was really good, so that was really fun. And
That's
he
fantastic. Yeah.
he surprised me with my best friends, flying them in, and they totally surprised me out of the blue, which was amazing. And then we started the whole "we don't want to be in Tennessee anymore" conversations.
Yeah.
And that's
Mhm.
where we are now.
Well, that leads into the next question, which is like, what has changed after 50? What are you? What's this new adventure that you're embarking on?
Well, we have decided to sell both of our homes in Nashville, or mine's right outside of Nashville. And we bought some land in New Mexico, and we are packing up all of our stuff currently as of like right now. We're packing up the last of it, and we are moving to New Mexico, right outside of Taos, to live in a camper and build an completely self-sustained off-grid home.
Yeah.
We started this journey with me thinking we were going to live outside of Patagonia in South America in Chile. And then I realized he never thought that was a reality. I thought it was a reality until I started researching how much it was going to cost to fly on my animals to South America. And I was like,
Oh,
maybe not.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we got somewhere close enough to the border where we could drive over if we needed to. And we went to New Mexico because we went on a trip, like a fact finding trip, and I fell in love. And he already knew he wanted to be in the Southwest. And so it was kind of like from that point on, it was he decided to retire from his amazing career for many, many, many years to focus on getting his house ready to sell and focus on, the owner builder side of building a home and what that looked like to be the
Yeah.
general contractor. And I, we sold his house, and it sold way quicker than we thought. It was great. And then we invested that money into land and a camper. And then unfortunately my mom passed away. And with that, we were able to, luckily she was very good with making sure we had a little something. So we had a little bit of a nest egg to put back to help with the fund of the, of the build and the land and all of the things. And now we are in the process, and I leave in 8 days. He leaves in 7, to drive across the country and completely downsize everything and live in a camper while we build our off-grid dream home. And then eventually we want to add a barn and some livestock, horses and donkeys or burros, and some casitas, because eventually what we would like to do is have a place where people can come. So it's really,
Yeah.
we've named it Three Ravens. The compound is called Three
Oh.
Ravens, and that's because we have 3 ravens.
Where does that come from?
Visit us. We have 3 ravens
Oh.
that visit us every morning and every evening on the property. When we were there last summer, we named they were
Wow.
a bonded couple, and then who were Fred and Alice, and then Sid, who was their little tag along guy, and they would fly over every night at sunset and would always speak to us.
Oh,
And
that's an
so,
amazing omen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a bunch of really great stuff. We drove the camper out there and learned how to tow a camper for the first time on the road.
Mhm.
Stopped at campgrounds
There's a
along the way.
massive learning curve on it. Very steep learning curve.
Very steep. And then we got it to the property and we said, we'll never move it again. We had all these aspirations that we were going to go camping, and we'd take it everywhere, and we'd bring it back, and we'd stay in it. And we got it parked in the perfect spot on the property, and we were like, and we're done. And we set up. Last summer we kind of spent 2 or 3 months out there. He spent longer than I did. He spent quite a lot of time on the mesa. We spent some time out there just kind of coming up with a system and figuring out what works and what doesn't work without our animals. And now we are pulling out of Nashville for the last time. Technically, I mean, we'll be back, but we are definitely saying goodbye to Tennessee and Nashville and to pursuing our dreams. And it is the scariest, best thing we've ever done.
That's amazing. So I want to hear a little bit more about why New Mexico, because my family, or some of my family, is from New Mexico. My great grandparents settled Hobbs, New Mexico. When they started their homestead, my great grandfather, he sent off the forms to incorporate or to get a post office there
Mm-hmm.
and establish it as a town. And on the paperwork, he had designated that it was going to be called Taft, New Mexico, because Taft was president at the time. And
That's great.
they messed up somehow and put his name on it. So that's how it became Hobbs, New Mexico. But it really is an amazing area. And so I'm just curious why for you, why it had held such appeal for you.
There's a couple of reasons. We definitely wanted to be in the West. Land was affordable. We were able to secure 10 acres for a fraction of what it would cost to do that in this area. Taos is one of the only blue rural areas in the country. And we, being in Tennessee, we both have outgrown the Tennessee legislator. And so our core values, our core beliefs just didn't align with a lot of the direction that Tennessee is going in the recent political climate. And so we knew we wanted to have land. We knew we wanted agriculture because I wanted to have horses. We knew that we wanted blue if possible. And when we went to go out there to do like a trial run, we had fallen in love. We had actually fallen in love with a different area. We fell in love with IBQ, which is where Georgia O'Keeffe settled. And we were looking there. And then I started looking for land because I was sold. I was like, it's July 4th. There's no humidity. I'm in a hoodie at night underneath the Milky Way. Like you can't write this any better. If they wanted to trap me, the land of entrapment trapped me immediately. We had gone on horseback riding, a trail ride through Ghost Ranch and learned all about Georgia O'Keeffe and the history of the area. And we were sold. And then I found a piece of property that was about an hour north that was very rural. And my husband said, find builders who will build there and I'll consider it. And I got on the internet and I started looking for people who build alternative building, earthen building, because our house is going to be made out of all earthen or alternative building. You know, we're doing rain catchment. We're passive solar, so we're not going to have traditional HVAC. We're doing what's called pumice-crete, which is pumice rock and concrete walls, and it's a great insulator, and they get poured into forms. And so all of this, we weren't doing that at first. We knew we wanted Adobe-esque. We knew we wanted sort of like an earth ship, which Taos is the like home of earth ships, and we had stayed in one. We knew we wanted to be in the IBQ area. And so I started researching and I found this website called the Earthen Builders Guild.com or .net, I think. And I started reaching out to people. There was like a resources list and it had a bunch of emails. And I just started emailing on Facebook and people and saying, do you build in northern New Mexico and will you build in IBQ? And I fell into an architect from the Taos area who said, I don't mean to be pretentious, but I don't think you want to pay me for this to draw you your drawings. Here are my interns. And he gave us the name of two young ladies who we met and we connected with immediately. They were very nice and on the same page. And it kind of morphed into New Mexico's great, New Mexico's blue. Now we have this team that's willing to support us in IBQ. And then they're the ones who said, have you considered looking in Carson, which is like 10, 15 minutes outside of Taos? And we had not, because it wasn't really what we thought we were looking for. And then we found a plot of land. We went and looked at the plot of land. We were like, there's no way, it's too good to be true. This is like, it's got character. It's got, it's not just the flat. Like when people visualize us moving to New Mexico and living in the desert, they visualize Breaking Bad. in a camper. I mean, they literally are like,
Yeah.
you're going to be Breaking
Yeah.
Bad. And you're like, it's a little bit different
Yeah.
than that. We're in the high desert. We're at the base of the Rocky Mountains. We have,
Yeah. Yeah.
hills. We have a couple of trees. Like, we're not, I'm like, we're at 7,000 square feet. So we have elevation, we have snow, we have seasons. Like, it's a little different than what you're picturing in your mind. But
Yeah.
securing that team along with the vibe of Taos is very arts forward. It's very, it's an extremely progressive town. It has the Taos Pueblo, which is the oldest, still currently lived in civilized area. So it's like, over 1,000 years, it's been continuously lived in by the, Taos Pueblo Indians. And so,
Yeah.
so it started checking all our boxes. It was indigenous, it was blue, it was rural, it was mountains and desert. It's just all of the sudden everything, and things were just like, as our list was checking off, timelines were aligning, and we were, the team that we acquired ended up being really great and very helpful and gave us a bunch of context to people to help us build and help us. And they're still supporting us. And it just kind of all started flowing so naturally that I think that's the most, when I say the scariest, best thing that's ever happened is, it's scary when we look back at how the timeline and how everything has been falling into place once we start pursuing our
Yeah.
dreams.
Mhm.
And prior to us kind of taking this path, there were a lot of what felt like roadblocks. We would hit a roadblock
Okay.
trying to figure out. And now those roadblocks, even when those roadblocks come up, they come up at the right time. They're manageable. And it feels very divine intervention-y. Like it
Yeah. Well,
feels like the
like
universe
the
is
roadblocks are
saying,
actually
yeah,
like
like you went
steering you in
through
the
all
right
these
direction
turns,
rather
and
than
like I went from
yeah.
Chile and Patagonia to now Taos, New Mexico. But
Yeah.
with that, it just felt so natural. And we really wanted to tap into and lean into that. And that's why, and it's hard. I mean, we're already last in that camper. I mean, we don't have delivery services. Like, Amazon takes 2 weeks. Prime is non-existent. Like, it's a completely different life than what
Yeah.
we've been living in both of our houses. We had 2 houses. We had all the
Yeah.
comforts and beyond. So it is definitely a
Well, and
shift.
you have quite a few animals that take up significant space too.
We
So
do now. We're down to just
yeah.
2 now, but we did.
Oh,
We had
okay. Okay.
We're down to 2. We did have 4 dogs. And then the herd
Okay.
got reduced due to various different
Yeah.
things. Old age, aggression, different things happen. But now it's just a dog
Yeah.
and a cat, which is
Yeah.
we wouldn't have been able to do it. I don't think either my husband nor I
Yeah.
have the patience or the mental fortitude to deal with 4 animals in that little camper. Or 2
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
already going to be a challenge.
No, I totally understand because, it was just me and a cat on the road in the campers, and that got cramped at times,
Right.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
learned so much about each other and in a
Mhm.
very short amount of time, and we had been together for
Yeah.
years. And it was like all of a
Yeah.
sudden we were exposed, and it
Mhm.
brought us so much closer. It allowed us to be very vulnerable because we didn't have any other choice. There was nothing to hide behind. There was
Yeah.
not we're gonna,
Oh, yeah.
there was not the distractions that you would have in a big city or even in a neighborhood, because we have
Yeah.
3 houses around us and only one of them is occupied full time. And the rest of them
Yeah.
it's literally just us and Sid and Fred and Alice, our ravens. And then we had Sam, the
Yeah.
pinyon jay that came. Those were our only animals out there. I was like, okay, we're going to have to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that, that kind of, one of the things I was gonna ask is, how as you started out on this adventure, did it go the way you expected, or did you have to adapt? And, especially with as much that seemed to just align for you, were there still things where you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that? And,
Yeah.
I'm not
We
sure how
had,
to.
but what was kind of cool was we make a great team. My husband is extremely pragmatic and I am a dreamer. And so we make a
Uh-huh.
great, we're like yin and yang. He can keep us
Mhm.
grounded and like focus on what's important. And I'm like, but we're going to have Vigas and our horses. And he's like, we don't have a foundation yet. So let's
Uh-huh.
crawl before we walk. And we balance each other really
Right.
well. And we got out there and we didn't know how we were going to do water because we don't have water on the property. And we had asked a couple of resources that we had met, and they were just kind of like, I don't really know. Like, you can fill it up at the gas station, you can fill it up at
Mm.
down. So we live up on the mesa, and then you can drive down to the gorge, which you can take the shortcut, which is literally straight down the side of the, the mesa down to the
Oh,
river,
wow.
and they have
Yeah.
what's called an open well, which is basically where they've kind of dammed a little bit of the Rio Grande and they have a little square thing where the water collects and there's like a pipe that you can open up and pour water in. And that wasn't filtered. And we have Berkeys and we have all the things, but that was one of the options. And we were like, meh. And so we had also bought this like plastic water bladder that was the size of the back of our truck because we didn't know. We didn't
Mhm.
know how we were going to do it. But we thought, well, this is good because we can still have stuff in the back of our truck and have this water bladder. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. It's all going to work out. And Todd
Famous
continuously
last
is like,
words. Right?
yeah, he's like, I don't know if it's going to be fine. We don't have water. We have to have water to live. Like this isn't just to shower.
Yeah.
This is like, we have to have, we can't just drive into town either.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, but to get water to drink, and so,
Well, especially if you're going to be totally off grid, that's a
I mean,
fundamental
right.
thing
And
there.
you can't even, I mean, in New Mexico, you can't catch groundwater. So even if we had the option to catch the groundwater, we were doing everything in our power not to attract any kind of codes or anything because we have our camper out there and we're just like, we haven't even started the process of permitting yet. So we don't want to get a red flag
Yeah.
before we even start. And I went inside to do something and he had reached out. There was a community well in the area. And I had said, he'd reached out to one of them and I had said, don't reach out to anybody else. Don't be a bother. And I was trying to manage it and manage him. And he went against my wishes and reached out to this other lady who just happened to answer the phone and was like, we have our monthly meeting tomorrow to approve people to get access to the well. And so
Wow.
we printed out the paperwork because we didn't have a printer. So we had to go to figure out on our phones how to download it to the laptop to send it to the printer company, the printer place, printed out the application, got it printed, went to the bank, got cash. He went and spoke to them unprepared, no idea what was going to happen. It was like 4 people in a little building, little like 10 by 12 building, and got approved for
Mhm.
us to have a lifetime membership to the well. So we're like, woo, we're celebrating because we have water now. We have secured water. And then, so we're like, yay, this is exactly like everything's happening for a
Mhm.
reason. He reached out to them. Everything's great. And then we went to the well to fill up the bladder and the connection from the well to the bladder wouldn't work. So it required like 5 or 6 trips back to the hardware store to figure out something that would work. And I mean, he's like in the back of the truck because our truck has a camper over it so we can store stuff. He's like in the back underneath the camper with this awkward thing that looks like a giant satellite dish, kind of holding it over with like these pipes, trying to get it to flow into the bladder. We finally get it figured out. We're like, woo, we have water. Again, like we're elated. We're like so excited.
Mhm.
Everything happens for a reason. We figured it out. Now we know how to do the well. We know, and I'm like positive Polly, and he's like, yeah, okay, great.
Mhm.
We get back to the camper,
Yeah.
and by like week 2, all of a sudden, our Berkeys are getting clogged. Our water is fizzy. It has bubbles in it. And we were like, what? Like, I'm reaching out to people in the Facebook groups, like, do you guys ever notice that the water is like fizzy? And they're like, no, ever, not ever. And we're like,
Yeah.
what in the world?
Mhm.
And there's 7,000 different reasons why. You Google it, and it's like there's an air hole in the bladder, or there's something wrong with the well, or something wrong with the connection, or something wrong with your pump, or something. I mean, literally, like, and we're going through everyone. And finally, he says, we should just pour the water directly out of the bladder into a bucket and look at the water. And what had happened was the bladder that we had been using had gotten too hot, and it had melted, and rubber particulates were coming off of the bladder into the water and
Oh,
clogging everything, and also potentially giving us cancer. So immediately we were like, we
yeah.
don't have water. We're back to square. And so it was, so then we ended up figuring out a cistern, and we a small one that we could put in the back of the truck that actually works. We went to Tractor Supply. We solved the problem, but through all of that, all of those challenges where we were like at each other's throat, because I was trying to come up with different suggestions, and
Yeah.
he's in the middle of processing things, and I'm not respecting that space. So I'm trying to, like, I'm just in it, just telling him what I think. And he's like, I need some time to process,
Yeah.
and I'm not giving him that space. So we learned
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
I need to, not play devil's advocate in the middle of a very stressful situation and just always counter. I need to be supportive. He needs to, it was like all these lists of things that we learned about each other in those moments that we would have never had, while also dealing with one of the most stressful things we'd ever dealt with. And it ended up working out. The work ended up working. Now we have a lifetime membership to a well. We're always going to be able to haul water. All these things ended up working out. But the timing of things, to me, I'm always looking at it as everything happens for a reason. Like, that has been, I've always said that, and I didn't understand it until now, until we moved and started this journey about how important it is that we figured it out. And we figured out the bladder, and we just happened to be there in October on one of the hottest days, which melted the bladder, which ended up saving us from potentially having this problem down the road and us not realizing it so quickly. And we, everything kind of shifted into a space where we got it all figured out. But the timing of things it has
Yeah.
not been smooth sailing at all. There has been a challenge after a challenge after a challenge. And what I have said to most people who ask me is, even the really hardest things that we process through on the Mesa or through this journey have been at the right time. And so
Mm-hmm.
it just really depends on when you look at, when you're in it, it doesn't feel like the right time. But in hindsight, you're
Yeah.
able to say, yeah, it's absolutely the right time. And I think looking at world affairs, looking at recent legislation that's passed in this state, looking at how things are shifting, there couldn't be a better time to be building a self-sustained house in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
Like,
that's part of why I'm jealous.
yeah,
It is something that and honestly, I grew up being taught a lot of those homesteading skills because we were poor,
right,
if we needed something, half of the time, my mom and dad figured out a way to make it.
right,
And so I've found as I've gotten old, well, really in this kind of midlife stage that and yeah, maybe some of it was prompted by COVID and some of the homesteading shows that are out there, but I also I just had reached a point in my life to where I was like, I want to be able to really use these skills that I was given as a child that at the time felt like
right,
I wanna be playing with my friends. Why do I have to
right. Why do I
help
have to
you in
be
the
canning
garden? You
some
know?
green beans today
And the
or
worst
whatever?
part was yeah, and the worst part was when I had friends come to spend the night, and Saturday was chore day, and they're like, "Well, you can have somebody over to spend the night, but you still have to get your chores done and they can sit in your room or they can help and
Right,
so I didn't I started to like not have as many people willing to go spend the night because chores were a part of being at my house, so it was, but, but I grew to cherish all of those things.
Oh,
And,
absolutely. And this is a
and
dream
so
my
I,
husband had. My husband has been chasing this long before I have. He was
really,
um his plan prior to meeting me was to go to New Mexico and learn how to build earthships with Michael Reynolds, who is the, godfather of earthships. And
okay.
that was his plan long before me. And
Mm,
he went through all the steps to make that plan happen. And then life made other decisions for him. And so he has always wanted to live off grid. He's always wanted to do better for the environment. He's always wanted to learn the different systems and the best ways to collect water
mhm,
and to utilize, the earth in the best way possible, in the most harmonious way possible. And I was
mm,
completely blind to this world. I mean, obviously I knew you need to conserve, and I lived out west for a while. Growing up in Tennessee, we weren't concerned with litter and trash and conserving water and things like that. It wasn't taught, it wasn't ingrained in us unless
mhm,
unless you were in the country.
yeah.
And people in the country or people who were poor learned. I did not learn any of this. I
Mm,
was completely blind
mm,
to it. So when I started researching it and I started learning, like, one of the coolest things is our camper we bought was already retrofitted solar. So it's fully off grid
nice.
and it has solar
Yeah.
panels, and we have a generator for a backup. And but we only use it to cook. We don't even use it to power. And it, it was fascinating to me to be able to watch our shows and have our internet and get
Hmm.
online and work. And I work remotely, and I was able to get it set up and sit in the camper and work. And he was, getting the land ready or the property ready for whatever stage we were in, or working on the permits or whatever. And it was so fascinating to me how people have been sold this convenience story,
Hmm.
especially since, the 50s, 60s, 70s. It keeps ramping up more and more and more. And
Yeah.
how there's this whole ability, if you can invest the money and the time, to disconnect from the utilities and to disconnect from the grid and to become self-sustaining. And if more people did it, it would exponentially change the trajectory of this planet. And learning that from him, and being I'm so inspired by him and his drive and his desires to want to do better for the planet and want to do better for
Hmm.
people and want to do, and it knows no bounds. And I'm constantly inspired by that. And then to get the opportunity to do that and learn, like, I will never forget where he wanted to do an earthship. And
Yeah.
I could. I choose not to live in a berm structure because I like windows. I like to be able to see what
Yeah.
is going on outside. I like to open them. I like a breeze. I like all those
Yeah.
things. And he repeatedly would tell me about passive solar and how it works. And he would be like, I don't think we can do that. Like, I don't think we can have um all these windows that I wanted, and we found a way to compromise. We found the right team,
Mm,
we found the right house, we found the right build. And even the guy that's building it was like, yeah, I mean, you don't have to, you can have a window or two, just, put the right blinds or the right insulation in to
mhm,
protect. So we found a compromise. But
yeah.
it's been really interesting to learn and join, like, off-grid groups and then prepper groups. The prepper groups get a little too, I mean, there's some
Yeah.
people out there that are real scared and have been real scared for a real long time. It's not new
Yeah.
to them, right? It's
Yeah.
new to me. And I really thought it was going to be like hippie commune world out there. And then I was like, oh, it's not. There's been people who have been anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-things way before I decided to do it. And their outlook
Yeah.
on things is very different than me. It's very doomsday. It's very, It's very much
Yeah.
prepping for the apocalypse. And mine wasn't. I went into it very naive. Like I was like, "Boop-a-doo-doo-doo, we're going to plant some trees and we're going to,
Yeah.
and we're going to have our house has a
We'll have a
hall
rainbow
that,
gathering.
right.
Yeah.
That's literally what I thought it was going to be like. And then I was like, oh, these people
Yeah.
are serious. Oh, they're real serious. Oh, they're
Uh-huh.
like some scary, like malicious
Yeah.
people. But it's been really,
Yeah.
it's such an exciting, I've always lived here in Nashville or the surrounding areas. I've lived other places for temporary, like 6 months, 8 months. I lived in Yellowstone
Mm-hmm.
and worked there. I lived in Steamboat, Colorado. I knew I was going to end up in the West. And I knew that was going to happen. And I never knew I was going to have horses until recently. I tapped back into that whole childhood dream within meeting him. But when we step foot on our property at the Mesa, it feels like home more than this place ever did. Like I know that I'm supposed like I know I'm supposed to be there, and I know I'm supposed to be there with my husband, and I know that we're supposed to do this despite all of the challenges. And I think that's the
Yeah.
beautiful part of it all.
Yeah. And I really admire and appreciate your attitude about, how everything does happen for a reason. Finding a purpose for even the hardships and the missteps and all of that. But is there anything about this process that you would have changed?
I think the only thing that if I was going to change anything, I don't know. I don't know if I would. I mean, it's hard, right? Because in hindsight, I think I would. I think, no, I don't think so. I mean, even losing my mom
Yeah.
suddenly last year, she
Yeah.
was fine. She got the flu. She was sick. And then on her deathbed, she said to me, I kept my end of the bargain and said, I'd never keep you from going. Now you got to keep yours. I mean, that was like our
Yeah.
final exchange was,
Yeah.
okay, mama, I'm going then. I think when you tap into, I mean, I would love to make it easier, right? I would love to make it more
Mhm.
malleable in the hard times. I would like to say that I wish it wasn't as stressful. I wish that we would have, fought harder for this change in the plans or the amendments that we're going to have to do to our plans when we submit to the build company. I wish that the county hadn't have had a cyber attack and delayed us weeks from getting our building permit. I wish a lot of things would have happened differently, but then when I look back, I'm like, but now it's going to be perfect weather and we're going to be out there and our
Mhm.
team's lined up and ready because they couldn't start last
Mhm.
fall and everybody's ready to go. So it just feels like I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
maybe all that stuff happened for a
Yeah.
reason." I think I would,
Yeah.
if I would do it differently, I think the only thing I would do is find a way to have more of our community out there during this journey. I think that's the
Mm.
only part is it gets very lonely on the Mesa. And we have social media,
Yeah.
but real connection with our loved ones
Yeah.
is such a great reset when you're having a really hard time. And I think if there was
Oh,
one thing
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
would change, it would be to have our community
Yeah.
be able to be accessible out there during this build. And that's not possible, but that would be the one
Yeah.
thing if I could change it, that would be the one thing I
Yeah.
would do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And again, I mean, it just that continues your philosophy of, yeah, well, timing is everything. And if it didn't happen then, it's because it wasn't the right time for it.
Right.
So, that's, and
And I didn't have
I,
this. I did not have this philosophy.
yeah,
I said it. I said it all the time, but I didn't know what it
yeah,
actually meant until I
yeah,
grounded,
lit,
till I figured out
yeah.
who I was. And I was like,
So
in
that's a
all of,
big,
yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say that's like one of the big things, the gifts of midlife is actually
yeah,
being able to live out this thing that, um, that you, I guess, instinctively knew made sense and applied, but it was, you know, more of a
Yeah.
platitude than anything before then. Yeah.
My brother came in town, and I've never not lived within driving, right, same day driving distance from my brothers my entire life. And we
Uh-huh.
we were all in town this weekend for my niece's short film debut, and my the Eric, who's the middle of us, was leaving, and I said, "All right, well, I guess I'll see you in New Mexico." And he kind of stopped, and he was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Yeah, well, this is it." And it was like the
Yeah.
first time that I was like, and so I got after he left, we got a bunch of, there was a bunch of sentimental texts between the three of us, and I said,
Yeah.
"You guys have been my lifeline for long enough, but I think I'm ready to leave the nest finally." And at 53, I think I figured out how to spread my wings and
Mm.
fly. And they were like, "All right." And I was like, "Yeah, it took me
Yeah.
a long time to get there, but I think I'm ready." And that's what I think being past 50 has allowed me and my core people is permission to be whoever the hell you want to be and to live your life however you want to live it. Don't apologize for it. Don't look back. Don't hold on, let go and move forward and live the life that you've always wanted to live. If you can.
Yeah.
And even if that's as
Yeah.
much as starting to have a podcast, even if
Uh-huh.
it's having, even if it's, driving across the country and living in your camper on the mesa, even if it's my friend Megan just
Yeah.
started a yoga practice and she's teaching and
Mhm.
she's like, "I've always wanted to do this." And I'm like, "Go for it." And she went for it.
Yeah.
Now her classes are all sold out. And it's just like,
Yeah.
tapping into that one thing that really drives you. I think that getting to this midlife space, I think you learn a whole lot getting here. And then I think once you get here,
Mhm.
you have a choice. You can either stay where you were, or you can tap into everything that you've learned and go to where you're supposed to be. And that's kind of where
Yeah. Yeah.
we are.
Absolutely. And that sums up my whole purpose for this podcast is to talk with people who figured that out, even if it was through lots of bumpy roads and
Ugh.
missteps and everything, and share that with other people who are entering that space and are thinking, you know, I think I'm supposed to show up differently
Yeah.
going forward, or there's something that I think I was probably gifted to do and never made the time for it before. How do I do that? So that's really my goal in all of these conversations I'm
It's
having
amazing.
is it's just some kind of like, you know, show the path, or show that the path is
Right. I mean,
doable.
this is the hardest,
And
best thing I've ever done. It's the hardest, best
yeah,
thing I've ever done.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
we have learned so much about ourselves. We have learned so much about, our lives. We've learned so much. And it's every single thing that we did was hard, but it was the best because when you're done, you're like, "Oh, this is what it feels like to
yeah,
actually work really hard for something." And then it worked out and you're successful.
yeah,
Like, yeah, it's not just
yeah,
Googling something or it's not just,
yeah.
it's gritty and it's hard, but it's amazing. And I- as equally proud of you for reaching out and saying, "Hey,
Oh,
I'm kicking this thing off. Let's do it. Let's talk about it."
yeah,
Because how brave is that, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like people,
yeah,
and I have friends and loved ones who haven't, and
yeah.
they're my age and they haven't, and all I
Mhm.
see is them craving. And they always say to me, "I can't believe y'all are doing this, but I'm so jealous because I
Yeah,
wish that I was able
yeah,
to chase my dreams." And I'm like, "You just said it.
yeah,
Just do it. Like,
yeah, yeah,
figure it out. We're figuring it out." And it's not
exactly.
easy. And it's not, I mean, leaving
Yeah,
my home for the first time permanently is like crazy pants to me, but also it doesn't feel like home anymore. It hadn't felt like home for a long time, except for my family. And with
Yeah.
mom gone and my, my brother's next door and he's going to be here. So I can always come back if I need to.
Yeah. Well, and that has been the constant refrain with everyone I've talked to is that it is the hardest, best thing I've ever done in my life. This because we all have different hardships that we endure, losses and struggles and, identity crises and those kinds of things that, from when we're young and, just beginning to figure out that we actually have a place in the world. But when you reach this stage where you have lived as a certain type of person, showing up a certain way for so long, stepping out of that and stepping away from what's comfortable and familiar to do something different, it's a whole other kind of hard. And I just admire everyone I've talked to so much for their bravery. And like it says in my introduction, I'm hoping that for the other people out there who've been carrying around a dream and just
Oh,
not daring to actually touch it, that they will get some inspiration and
yes.
maybe some motivation from these stories to go ahead and try. So
Just
yeah, I
try.
mean, it's just,
I mean,
yeah.
you're going to fail, but you're
Oh
going to,
yeah,
but at
yeah,
least you're failing at something you've always wanted to do instead of failing at going to pick up the mail from the postman that you missed or whatever it is. Like
yeah,
we have fallen on our faces over and over and over and over again, but we get back up, and when we get back
yeah,
up, it's even more rewarding because it's for our
yeah.
dream and it's not necessarily just for the status
Well,
quo.
because and I guess because you're failing forward.
Yeah.
You're you learn each time you fail, and I mean, this is not a metaphor that's new, but it is that that as long as you carry a lesson with you when you get back up, you're still making forward progress. You haven't regressed just because you fell. And
Right.
so, and yeah, that's what I hope that people will take away from
It's amazing.
um
I love it.
all these podcasts. So yeah.
And
Well,
maybe
Beth,
one day,
I thank you so much for taking the time, especially in
yeah.
the midst of like getting
The
ready to
chaos. Well,
really launch
what I
and
hope
move
is
and
that
everything.
we'll have a like check-in in 3 months and I can be like, look at my
I would
property.
love to do that.
Love it. I
Take
love it.
care, safe
Thank you
travels,
so much.
and yeah, I look forward to seeing on Facebook as
From
the
hitch
next
to
few
home. That's
months
how
open.
people can follow the journey on Instagram. If people want to
What's it
follow
called
it.
again?
From hitch to home is the name of the Instagram handle.
Fantastic.
All
Great.
right.
Great.
Thanks, Kara.
Thank you so much. Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
I'm gonna do something new. I'm gonna turn these wheels into wings, flying through the endless blue, finding my own way, drinking from new springs, from the mountains high to the valleys low.